Tao Meeting Archives, April 17th, 2016. 6-Foot Alley. Also, The Butterfly Effect by Derek Lin.
It's time for us to get started, and as usual, we will begin with the meeting beginning ritual. 起立，面向佛堂，参加真功一鞠躬，再鞠躬，三鞠躬，参加各位点传师一鞠躬，开单一鞠躬，请坐下。Please be seated. Everyone, thank you for coming into the Tao meeting. Once again, we are together this beautiful Sunday to talk about the Tao. So, we have a short meeting today. Let's get right into it. The very first thing that we ought to do is to look at the schedule, as usual. So if you take a look, today we have the spring ritual. Once every season, 4 times a year. The seasonal ritual is extra long. It's like an hour longer than the usual midday ritual, and therefore we have a shorter meeting because of that. Instead of a 2-hour meeting, we have a roughly 1-hour meeting. Usually it works out to be more like 50 minutes. And then if you take a look, next Sunday, April 24th, we will be continuing our discussion on the Daodejing with chapter 55. I think we will be able to get to the beginning of 55 today. We'll see how it goes. Typically, when we have a short meeting, I use the time to respond to questions that have been asked. My policy is to not sweep anything under the rug, but to answer every question that comes in. All valid questions will have answers. All questions that are asked in earnest, serious questions deserve serious answers, and that certainly is what I will do today. Is I'll start by responding to questions from last time, and then whatever time's left, we will get into 55. Then I'd like everyone to note that May 1st and May 8th, we have 2 consecutive weekends, 2 Sundays, with time off. So we're not going to have a meeting on May the 1st because of a Tao conference. It'll be the first Cantonese-speaking, Cantonese-only Tao conference for this temple. So the Cantonese speakers at this temple are super excited about that. And then after that, on the 8th, Mother's Day. So again, no meeting that day. Everyone is encouraged to spend more time with loved ones, with family, for Mother's Day weekend. And then after that, in the month of May, continuing on to 55, probably finish that off in the middle of May, going on to 56 toward the end of May, and then once again we have another weekend off, May 29th, Memorial Weekend, so it looks like a relatively light schedule for the month of May. I'll remind everyone again at the end of our meeting today. For now though, because we have a short meeting, I would like to get right to the questions that were asked. So last time, as you probably know if you've been following this for a while, as I am presenting a particular chapter, I usually am not able to answer questions at the same time. So what I like to do, what I usually do is that I review all the questions that come in after the meeting, and then I look for patterns. If more than one person has asked a particular question, then to me that is the sign that many people are interested in the answer. So I be sure to put that, include that into the contents of the next meeting, so that question gets answered. In this particular case, for last Sunday's meeting, we had 2 primary questions in that each one had multiple, each one inspired multiple questions that came to me. So one of them was about the next slide, the story about harmony in the community that I told last time. It's a story that came to us from the Qing dynasty, the last dynasty in Chinese history. Actual historical person, actual historical events. So several questions came in about that. So I'd like to go through that with you one more time. Plus, whoever missed it last time, I'll briefly recap the story. The other question was the fascination that people had about the butterfly effect. So the butterfly effect is probably most well known in scientific circles as a metaphor to describe one aspect of chaos theory. So people are very fascinated by that, chaos theory, fractals, etc. It's something that I talked about previously, but I think it won't hurt for me to go through an introductory talk on those, just to put everything into context and then to remind everyone how we can apply even the latest ideas in a cutting-edge field like chaos theory. We can use that and see, we can look at that and see the Tao embedded in it, Tao principles that we can use. So those are the two primary topics in the Q&A segment today. Let me begin with the story about harmony in the community, the story of the sixth reality. So the photo that you see in this particular slide, this is an actual place in China. And this alley, this photo of the alley has this engraving next to it. The Chinese characters I've replicated down here. So let me explain. The first character, that's the Chinese character for 6, the number 6. The next character, 尺, is a measure of length. So you can tell I've translated that as feet, 6 feet, 6 foot. The actual measure, this is the measure in ancient China for commerce. So if you were to buy things, if you were to get into construction, you would encounter that units of measure frequently. Now, you can probably guess that it is not exactly the same as a foot. It is not the same as a meter. It's a lot closer to a foot than a meter. And the actual length of 尺 has varied throughout Chinese history. At the time of the story, 尺 was roughly 23 centimeters or 9 inches. So you can see, if you look at the photo, that the width of this alley is 6尺, which would basically mean 6 times 9 inches, and that's basically 54 inches in width across. So that gives you an idea, and I've picked a photo with someone in it to give you a sense of scale. So it's not super wide, but it's certainly enough for people to get from point A to point B. So this is an actual place, and the story behind that, the story behind this alley, is a story that I told last time. The walls that you see here, each one is the estate of a prominent family in that community. So one of the families has, in the Qing dynasty, had produced an extraordinary man who became a minister. So he was constantly away at the imperial capital serving the emperor. So he received an urgent message one day from home, and it turns out that it was because his household had a dispute with a neighbor. They were basically in conflict over the border, the fence between the wall between them. Each one of the two families insisted that the wall between them should be placed beyond what the other person says. So they could not agree on that. The regional government that had authority over this was afraid of offending either one of the families. If they ruled on favor of one prominent family, they would offend that. They would offend the other family, so they hesitated to act. So the matter was stuck, which is why the message was sent to this minister at the imperial capital. So he responded with a little bit of poetry. So in modern-day China, when you go to this location, you will see there's a courtyard and there's a massive stone in the middle of the courtyard with another engraving on it, and the engraving depicts the response from this minister to his family. And that's what I have for you in the next slide. So just like what I have here I've got the 3 characters extracted from the engraving that you see on the wall. And it literally translates to 6, and then 是 the units of measure, and then the last character there is Ali. So this is a place, this is an actual place in China. The story that I told was an actual historical event in China. So how did the minister respond to this urgent message from home? Well, here is the response. So first of all, for literate, scholarly men and women of ancient China, they respond with poetry. They write in poetic forms, and this is quite usual. So if you take a look at the characters, never mind what it says for now, just look at the characters, you will see that it's actually the same length, that each line is 7 characters in length. So here, the order that I have is this is line 1, and then line 2 next to it, and then line 3, and then line 4. Each line consisting of 7 Chinese characters. When you sound it out, it actually rhymes. And this, again, this is not unusual. These ancient scholars, they were so well versed in the language that they can use it with such high level of skill. The closest equivalent, if you think about modern day times, if you think about, for instance, rappers as street poets, the best ones can look at anything and begin to rap with sharp observations into what they observe, and making sure that it has a rhyming scheme all the way through, etc. So that talent, that skill is not completely unknown to us in the West. In ancient China it's rather commonplace. What I'm going to do to talk about this response from the minister, what I'm going to do is to read it out in Chinese, in Mandarin for you. So so of course it's not going to make any sense, but what I want you to do is to listen to. We have people in the internet connection today who actually do know Chinese, so you will be able to assess my reading of it. For those of you that don't, just listen for the rhyming. Listen to it like music, and you will see what I mean about the rhyming scheme, about the poetic quality of it. And then for the people that do know Chinese, I actually have additional commentaries for you that you will probably find interesting. So here we go. Here is the poem that was the response from the minister to his family members who were complaining about this conflict that they were having with their neighbor. 一纸书来只为强，让他3尺又何妨？长城万里今犹在，不见当年秦始皇。 So if you listen to the tone of it, you will discover that the end of line 3, line 2, and line 4 are the rhyming schemes. So this is the ancient poetry, and for those of you that actually know Chinese, and when we post this online, certainly this presentation can be seen by, this recording can be seen by people who are native speakers of Chinese, who know Mandarin, who know traditional Chinese characters, etc. So let me talk about that. There's actually multiple versions of this little poem for the Chinese-speaking population of the world, and the variations are that the beginning of line 1 is different. So in a different variant, it says, 千里修书只为墙, that is, writing a letter for 1,000 miles only because of the wall. And then line 2 is the same across all different versions, 让他三尺又何妨. And then line 3 has one variation. So the variation that I'm using, the official version that I'm using, 长时万里今犹在. In the other variation, it's 万里长城今犹在. So why the variation? Well, mostly because when people are spreading this particular story around, details get changed, memory is imperfect. So the version that says, writing a letter over 1,000 miles away just because of the wall, that is a version that's most prevalent in Taiwan. However, I don't think that they got it right. I think they got it wrong. I think that scholars, people who thought that they had the original Chinese cultural tradition intact sometimes do make mistakes. And I know that because I can take the original from the inscription in the courtyard right by the actual location of the alley. So in that particular inscription, in that engraving, the version that is engraved is exactly as you see here in this slide. So the translation of the poem is as you can see here. The first line says, one page, mail, shu means book, here it just means mail message, coming only because of wall. So that's kind of a character by character verbatim translation. So real translation will be something like mail message on a page only for a wall. 让他三尺又何妨? Let them have 3 feet. Why not? What will be wrong with that? So translation, why not just let them have 3 feet? Why not back away 3 feet, let them have the wall where they want it, and even give them some space. Changcheng, that's the Great Wall of China. The Great Wall, 10,000 miles, 1 li, is still there today. 不见, but you don't see 当年 back then, the person back then, Qin Shi Huang, the emperor who ordered the Great Wall of China to be built. Where is he? He is gone. He is gone because even though he was the emperor, life is transient. And when you realize how transient life is, you tend to not want to blow things out of proportion. You tend not to want to engage in petty conflicts. Therefore, the meaning of the above, as you can see in the bullets that I have here, urgent letter about a wall? Really, guys? You want to go to all that trouble just for a wall? Are we keeping a sense of proportion here? Isn't this making a mountain out of a molehill? That's what that first line means. And then the second line, hey, just back off. What's the harm? What are you afraid of? What's the big deal? Just back off. What's the loss? 3 feet? Why not? What would be so bad about that? Then the last 2 lines. Well, listen, life is transient. Look at the Great Wall, still around, but Qin Shi Huang, the emperor from roughly 2,000 years ago, that emperor, long dead and gone. So, hey, life is too short. Let's not waste a whole lot of time engaging in petty conflicts. So with that, with that letter back home, because the minister was the head of the household, what he said was the rule. So his family members obeyed that command and backed off 3 feet exactly. You know, remember 1 foot being like 9 inches at the time. The neighbor, the other prominent family, you know, heard of this, just as everyone in that local area heard of this. And their reaction was that, what? You guys think you have a monopoly on virtue? You know, we're equally capable of being just as magnanimous, just as good as you are presenting yourself to be. We're going to back off 3 feet. So each one backs off 3 feet, and that resulted in enough space for the alley between the 2 estates. So that was listed as an example for promoting harmony in the community that I used for the previous chapter. So one request was the clarification of the story and the reply from the minister, and there you have it, the original message, the translation, and the meaning behind that message. The other question was on the teaching that this embodied. It's a common teaching in the Tao to talk about how, listen, it takes, you know, it's in accordance to the Tao. It is completely in accordance with the Tao to think about just letting the other person be, just backing away. Why waste your time in petty conflicts? You know, exactly like this poem says. But then the other question comes in from sort of a very Western perspective. The question is this: Derek, what if you back down to promote harmony? You know, you mean well. But the other side, I mean, they're horrible. They're just really bad people, right? They think you must be a weakling. So they take advantage of you. They exploit the opportunity. You know, do you just keep backing down? So let me say, this is a very, very common attitude in our society. Usually in the West, the idea is that is never back down. You know, if someone, you know, offends you, well, then you will offend them right back. Someone yells at you, you yell back even louder. You know, never show any weakness. That is a very prevalent attitude that I find. It is not the Tao. So look at my answer. As you can see here in this bullet, my answer is this. And I'm going to apologize for offending people that are asking, because this is such a different way to think about the world. The Tao, the path of the Tao, sometimes is so incredibly different from what we're used to. And that answer is this: if you live in fear of others taking advantage of you, then guess what? You are weak. You are genuinely weak internally, and it doesn't matter how much external strength you possess or think you possess. Doesn't matter how many weapons you have, you know, to enable your counterattack. If you live in fear, it is because you are really weak. It's not just the other party thinking that you are weak. You really are. And the Tao is not to react based out of fear. The Tao is about becoming strong so you are not weak. So, second bullet. The Tao is not about defending yourself against all possible threats, keeping yourself from getting overwhelmed by paranoia, by your fear. That isn't the Tao. Okay? Previously, I talked about the Tao is not pacifistic, that remains as true as ever. But think about what it means to be really strong. Think about what it means to have genuine strength that is backed up by every possible kind of strength, in that internal strength ripples outward to manifest as external strength as well. So let me explore a little bit further my answer. I know this is going to be, when I talk about this, always people will say, but what if they do this? But what if they do that? But what if they take more advantage? But what if they think that they have won? What if they gloat? What if they boast about their victory? What if they continue to take advantage? What if? Okay, that always happens. So when you react in that way, it only shows that you are not really listening to what the Tao is telling you. What is the Tao saying? Let me go to the next slide. So just put all of the what if questions aside for the moment. Put away all the but. Put all of that away just for a moment and think about what would happen if you were so incredibly authentically powerful that when you back away, it's not because you are expecting the other side to also back away, like the neighbor did in the story. When you back away, you have no expectations whatsoever. In fact, you are perfectly fine with them taking advantage, quote unquote, take advantage of whatever. It doesn't matter to you because you are so much stronger. You've got so much more. You've got much bigger fish to fry. You have no time for that pettiness. Okay? So what if it doesn't matter to you? Now, you may find that to be very hard to imagine. I will help you imagine it in just a moment. So let me emphasize, the Tao is not about assuaging fears or paranoia. It's about gaining that internal, genuine, authentic strength, authentic inner power. So I'm not saying that when you are not truly that powerful that you fake it and pretend to be generous, magnanimous, backing away. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that before you back away, you want to be at that point of genuine power. So when you back away, it's truly because you don't care that the other side, they can't do anything to you. And the reason why that is because you are not at the same level as the other person. Let me give you some examples. Take a look at the picture that I have here. You see the two little boys. They're clashing over a toy. So I want you to notice one thing. The two little boys. Imagine if one of them is a little boy and the other one is not a little boy but you. So think about how that would be. Would you be in a position to struggle with a little boy over a toy? Probably not. If a little boy is insisting on getting something, grabbing something, in this case, a little teddy bear, chances are you would say, you can have it. Here you go. It's all yours. Why? Aren't you letting the other side take advantage of you? Aren't you letting them win? Well, yeah, but you are at such a different level from the little boy that it doesn't matter at all. It doesn't make a difference. And you don't want to waste any time arguing with the little boy on why the teddy bear doesn't belong to him, belongs to you. That would be ridiculous. So you can only clash against someone at the same level. So when you do find yourself in a conflict situation, the question to ask is, are you in the situation because you see yourself at the same level as the other party? And if you are, sometimes you have to admit, you have to acknowledge reality and say, well, yeah, I kind of see myself at the same level, and that's why I'm in conflict. Then the next question is, do you want to be at the same level as the other party? Or would you rather elevate yourself? Would you rather ascend to a higher level where the conflict will seem completely pointless and meaningless, like a little boy trying to wrest away the teddy bear from you. So more examples. A good friend of mine used to date his girlfriend. Both my friend and his girlfriend are animal lovers. His girlfriend has a dog who was very protective of her. So a couple of things happened in that relationship. One, when he got to within the girl's vicinity, he noticed that the girl's dog would be growling, would be watching him, would be like, don't you harm her, or you will have to answer to me. So they both thought that this was funny. So when I saw this, I pointed out to my friend that you probably don't feel genuine jealousy toward the dog, because you know that you and the dog are not at the same level. It is not as if your girlfriend has another guy that she's also interested in, and that other fellow can compete against you at the same level. Okay? It's a completely different situation. And when the girlfriend is, playing with the dog, when she's like, who is a good dog? You are. Yes, you are. Does he get jealous? Well, again, absolutely not. Why not? Because he knows that he's not at the same level as the dog. He's at a completely different league. So again, when you're conflicting with someone else, it's because you are competing teams in the same league. But just imagine, would a major league baseball team compete against a little league team, like for real? Well, of course not. Not at the same level. So what the Tao says is not, when backing away from conflict, right? It's not to say that, well, you just fake, just, convince yourself that you are superior, and therefore you can walk away. No, it's because you come from such a position of genuine strength, like a major league baseball team facing challenge from a little league team, and the major league team says, hey, listen, guys, you won, okay? You guys win. We don't need to play a game, You guys can consider yourselves to be victors. Well, just admit to everyone that you won and we lost. That's it. So that is the Tao, is to get into a position where you don't have to care, because it truly doesn't matter to you. Great.
Yes, sir.
How you doing?
I'm great, Greg. How are you?
You look completely different. Do you remember the hair that you had years ago when you were here for the first time?
That's right.
You were wow, man. But let's get caught up. I want to get through these slides. But it's fantastic to see you. And I remember, man. It's been it's like 8 years or something. Yeah. Back to the slides. So this is an important point. And I'm gonna back up one slide just for Craig's sake here. I'm so happy to see him, my friend Craig, after years and years. So the question that was asked from last time was, well, what if you back down? What if you back away from conflict because your intent is to promote harmony, right? But then the other side thinks, well, you must be weak, and therefore they take further advantage of you. That was the question. So the answer is that, well, listen, dealing with fear, dealing with paranoia, the Tao is not intended to get you to act in a way to protect yourself. Like, who's after me now? Like how am I going to strike back? What am I planning to hit back even harder? That's not the Tao. The Tao is to get to the place of genuine strength where you're like, hey, you won, okay? You know, you can consider yourself to be the victor. I don't need to be in conflict with you, right? So that's what we're talking about right now. So this is the answer to the first question that I received from last time. Now, the other question that I received was in regards to the butterfly effect. And this is where I get into a discussion that's not usually considered to be the Tao, but I see a lot of Tao in it. It involves science, it involves chaos theory, it involves mathematics, and I'll talk about that, but we don't need to get into the details. I would just like to have everyone have a feeling for what that is. That's the important thing. So I want to reemphasize again that a lot of times people say, well, according to the butterfly effect theory, and I want to, no, it's not a theory. The butterfly effect is a way, a metaphor, to illustrate an important aspect of chaos theory. That important aspect is called sensitivity to initial conditions. And all it means is that one tiny change in the beginning results in a huge difference at the end. That's all. That's all you got to remember. Sometimes a tiny adjustment at the beginning results in a dramatic and massive difference at the very end over time. And we use that idea in the Tao to be like an engine of motivation. You know, there's something that I can do today that seems minor, that seems small and insignificant, something that I can tweak, but it will have a very powerful impact on me down the road. So if I had the wisdom, I would think about what that is, because making that change is relatively effortless, but the benefits are tremendous. That's the butterfly effect. So that's what I mean by the second bullet. And that's what I mean by applying the idea to your life. So one example that I would use, look at the third bullet here, if you free up an hour every day, in a year, you gain the equivalent of 9 weeks worth of productivity. So let me run everyone through that calculation so you see what I mean. If I free up, if somehow it was possible for me to free up an extra hour every day, I gain an hour every day, then in a year, that'll be 365 hours, because 1 hour per day. So in the typical working day, you know, I work for 8 hours. So I would take 365 hours and divide it by 8 hours to see how many working days I actually get out of it. And the answer is about 45.6. So that's the number of days that I gain out of a year of saving an hour every single day. So what's 45.6 days? Well, in the typical working week, I work 5 days a week. So now I want to know how many working weeks do I have in 45 days, and that's another division, and that gets me 9. So 9 weeks worth, that is like 2 months. If just by doing that little thing, I have an extra 2 months in a year to do what I want, well, I can do a lot of things with that. That can create a dramatic difference. Now, I'm using this example not arbitrarily, not randomly. I'm actually using this example because this is the example for my own life. So years ago, I very fortunately was able to figure out how to do exactly that. So, you know, making some small, relatively small adjustments involving exercise and diet, nutrition, I was able to get to a point where, for me, sleeping for 6 or 7 hours felt exactly like it used to be when I slept for 8 to 9 hours. So I could at least free up an hour every single day without any ill effects. And in fact, I actually had more energy than I did before during the waking hours. So I really did that. Those of you who are curious, I'd be happy to talk about that more. You know, my diet consisted of, you know, very little that's unhealthy. There's not a whole lot of processed meats and stuff like that. All the things that doctors tell you to avoid, I avoided them, you know, so very little Even before I became a vegetarian, I had very little red meat, very sparing, and after doing that for a while, I can honestly say that I felt no desire, no craving for red meat. A lot of it was very natural. Like one day, I used to go to El Pollo Loco all the time, and my thing there was the Wing Lover Special. If you guys go to El Pollo Loco, you know what I'm talking about. I ended up with a plate of wings, and I just attacked that plate, right? That was my favorite thing. After a while, though, it's like, okay, well, this is the same thing that I always order, but now the taste is different, just because I haven't had it for many months. And the taste is not a pleasing taste anymore. I can't really explain it to you if you haven't experienced that for yourself. So very naturally, I just dropped it because it wasn't as good as it was in my memory. It's the same thing, and I never thought, I always thought that vegans, not having eggs and stuff like that, that's way too extreme, man. I can't see myself doing that. And my wife and I, we used to, before coming to the temple, we stopped by McDonald's and we would get our egg McMuffin, we would get all that every Sunday. This went on for years. And then for a while, we did some cleansing. We didn't have eggs for several months. And we went back to our old routine, visited McDonald's, and then suddenly the eggs are like, wow, this has a really strong animal taste. It's not pleasant. How come I didn't feel this before? Okay, and it didn't matter. We tried to get back into it. We couldn't get into it. Yeah, like it wasn't tasty. It wasn't delicious to us. So we dropped it. It was very natural. And that plus cardio, 1 hour of cardio every day. And during the time that I do cardio, because I'm using a machine, I can read, I can listen to audiobooks, I can do a lot of things that I normally would have spent time doing, therefore it's not time wasted. That combination gave me an extra hour every day, easily. And if you wonder how I was able to work full-time in a very high-intensity job as a technology manager, doing high-tech stuff like cloud computing, but at the same time was able to write books, well, that's it. That's my secret. That's what that is. That's how I could live sort of a double life. So if I could do it, if you talk to my little sister, I mean, she saw me grow up sleeping until 11 o'clock in the morning. It was very common. If you talk to her, she would say, no, it's impossible. It's unbelievable. It's not true. That's not really my older brother. That's actually just a double that aliens have replaced him with. What have they done with my real brother, right? She doesn't believe it. But if I can do it, then I feel like anyone that wants it can do it. And it may not, the little tweak may not be what I talked about for myself. That's just an example. It could be a total different kind of tweak for you in a completely different area of life that can produce a dramatic, powerful result for you. So, we talked about the chaos theory. When I talked about it before, people really enjoyed the discussion. So I got the idea that perhaps I can bring it back just so everyone can experience that, because a lot of people did not hear that talk when I presented it before. So the picture that you see at the lower right-hand corner, that's the picture of the Mandelbrot set. Mandelbrot is a mathematician, the surname of the mathematician that worked with fractals, with chaos theory, etc. What started out as pure theory ended up having incredible real-life implications that we're seeing all the time. It's just that most people don't really realize that we're seeing the practical applications of chaos theory. So, but let me start at the beginning. This particular graph is the result of a very simple equation. And the equation says you get the value of z you get the new value of z by using the old value. You square that value and you add it to a constant, and then you plug it back in. You keep doing that. That's the basis for the Mandelbrot set. So for those of you who are mathematically inclined, I can go further. For those of you who are not, just get the feel. For those of you who are, the Mandelbrot set works over complex numbers. If you've never heard of complex numbers, don't worry about it. Those of you that have complex numbers have two components. There's the real number and there's the imaginary number. It's a big field in mathematics. An imaginary number is a real number multiplied by what we call I. I is the square root of -1, which doesn't exist. It's imaginary, so it's an imaginary number. So again, if all of that sounds like Greek to you, no need to worry about it. It's the basis for fractal geometry. Just appreciate the incredible beauty of fractal geometry. Think about the complexity that results from such a simplistic operation that keeps feeding itself. When I say keeps feeding itself, the term in mathematics is iteration, like repetition, which is why we have these arrows. It just keeps calculating and recalculating. The Mandelbrot sets are all the numbers that are constrained, that quote-unquote escape the sets. And the numbers that are outside the sets, they get bigger and bigger and bigger. They have escaped the set. So those are the basic ideas. When I say you get astonishing complexity, what I mean is that you can zoom into the border of the Mandelbrot set between the numbers that stay in the set and the numbers that zoom into infinity. When you zoom into the border, you see intricate details, and you can zoom in as much as you want. You will always see something different, but it will always be self-similar. It will always look kind of like the original. So those are the central ideas. Keep in mind, so let me correspond that to the Tao. In 42, in chapter 42, it talks about how zero, the Tao, from the zero comes the one. Okay, simple enough. From nothing comes something. So one comes out of zero. And then from one, differentiating into two. From the unity of the Tao, differentiating into the duality of yin and yang. Then the interactions of yin and yang, movements, change, the third factor, resulting in the complexity of the world. So I put 42 here because the feel, when you actually understand that chapter, that's exactly what you see in higher mathematics. So the other aspect of fractals, chaos theory, the Mandelbrot set, is that in the Tao we talk about patterns. As it is in heaven, so it is on earth. As it is in the bigger scale, in the macrocosmic sense of the word, so it is at the personal level. So those patterns that repeat themselves is the reason why we can learn from the big to the small, from the small to the big, and vice versa. So we're going to need to end our meeting pretty soon, but I have some examples to show you why fractal is important and why it's the Tao. I want to show you a whole bunch of pictures. The picture on the upper left-hand corner, this is when you zoom in to one part of the Mandelbrot set. So it has this intricate look that's very interesting. It's just a mathematical construct. It's just very abstract. It's all based on graphing this very simple equation. But over to the right-hand side, I've got something here that is not a mathematical graph. This is actually from the real world. What is it? This is Egypt. It's a river in Egypt, viewed from a satellite. This is satellite imagery that you can get from Google Maps. So notice the intricate patterns of the river, the tributaries flowing, water flowing, nourishing the land. Okay, so that's nature right there. Then take a look at what's at the bottom. Here, I've got the patterns of veins in a leaf. Here, you're going to see the large veins dividing into tiny little vessels carrying water. So think about this for just a moment. Function of the river is to carry water from one place to another. It's feeding the land, so to speak. It's actually allowing a lot of living things to thrive, whether in the water or by the river. Animals come to feed, come to slake their thirst. So think about a leaf, think about that as land, think about water being carried by these tiny little vessels into every part of the leaf, nourishing that particular leaf. It's actually the same thing, but at a much smaller scale. In that satellite imagery, we can't see the trees because we're too high up, but each one of the tiny trees that we can't see has gazillion leaves that are all carrying out the intricate little work of water transportation. How about that? So what's this got to do with you and me? Well, over here we have the blood vessels. Notice the same intricate detail, same patterns, the same self-similarity. This is you, this is me. Not just blood vessels, your nervous system, your neurons in your brain, everything about you. And what do the blood vessels do? Yeah, they carry all the work. They bring water and nutrients to all parts of your body. Kind of like the leaf, kind of like the river. So think about how the different levels of reality that we have here, land, person, tree, all in a way reflecting one another. Why? Because the Tao is the pattern that's behind everything. It's reflecting itself in every level of existence. And by understanding one part of it, we have the leverage to understand more, understand the bigger parts. So that's the reason why we do what we do. So one thing about this that's very interesting is that when you see a movie, you're gonna, in modern times, we have so many movies with special effects. Sometimes we don't even know that they're special effects. This appears to be the photograph of a mountain range. This is actually all generated in a computer. And it's generated in a computer using fractal geometry, using the kind of equations that you saw here, so that the more you look into it, the more details you can perceive. So every terrain that's generated in a movie screen is using what we're talking about here. And that's why they look so real. They look real because they're using the equation that underlies existence itself. So by studying the Tao, we come into contact with that. Now, a quick preview on what we will talk about next time. We don't really have enough time to get into 55 today, but this is what 55 looks like. So next time, I'll read this from beginning to end. I will demonstrate the patterns. I will divide it up into different sections, as you can see, and then we will tackle each section successively. For now, though, just a reminder for everyone, if you are interested in the tradition behind this particular temple, you can always ask me and get more information on that. And another reminder, and this is the last slide, we're going to need to end on the slide today. Another reminder is that next week, next Sunday, we're going to be back with a full 2-hour meeting instead of the 45, 50 minutes today. And then we have 2 consecutive Sundays with no meeting, then 2 consecutive Sundays where we get into 55 and 56, and then Memorial Weekend, no meeting again. So that's my reminder for everyone. So, Craig, that just means, don't show up on May the 1st. I won't be here. So with that, I'd like to bring the meeting to a close with the meeting closing ritual. So just follow me, quick and easy. 起立，面向佛堂，持下3鞠躬，一鞠躬，再鞠躬，3鞠躬，持下多一点，全是1鞠躬， 接班一语之功。We are done.
Join the Tao meeting live to participate in the questions and commentary. For more information, go to http://taoism.net/tao/connect-online.